If your lighter ever gets wet in the woods and you cannot make fire from the wood around you, you will freeze to death before dawn. That is not a guess, neighbor. That is a fact. In the winter of 1833, on the upper Yellowstone, a trapper made his bed on hemlock boughs and pulled a buffalo robe folded double over himself. His flintlock lay across his knees. His match tin was in his shirt against his skin because a match tin at Fort Union that spring had cost him a full day's wage in beaver, and by December the paper was already wet. He did not care. Inside that same shirt, wrapped in a scrap of oiled leather, he carried a spindle and a hearthboard he had carved with his own knife. The matches were the luxury. The wood was the life. Today, most Americans standing in that same forest with a wet lighter in their pocket would freeze to death by dawn. Not because they are soft, because nobody handed it down. Nobody had the chance. But here is the twist, friend. That trapper was not doing anything a 9-year-old with a good pocket knife cannot do this weekend. And what he knew, the thing he trusted more than the rifle and more than the robe, has a name. It is called the bow drill. Friction fire, wood on wood, no match, no flint, no fuel you did not carry in on your own back. 5 pieces you can carve in an afternoon with a knife you already own. And by the time we are done, you will know every one of them. The stake, neighbor, is this. If the power goes out, if the lighter drowns, if the storm rolls in and the matches turn to paste in your pack, you still eat hot, you still sleep warm, you still walk out of the woods on your own 2 feet, because you carry fire in your hands, not in a package somebody sold you. And there is one piece of this, the piece the school books never taught, the piece 9 out of 10 people botch and then swear the whole skill does not work, that does more of the work than all the others combined. We will build to it. By the time this is over, you will know every step of the bow drill the same way that trapper knew it. The 5 pieces of the kit. The wood you cut and the wood you do not. The posture, the pressure, and the one piece nobody teaches right anymore. There are 7 parts to doing this right. 6 of them your grandfather could have shown you in a Saturday afternoon. The 7th, the one they never wrote in the manuals, the one that separates the man who makes fire from the man who makes smoke, I am saving. We will get there. And this skill did not fade because it quit working, neighbor. Diamond Match Company got rich the day your great-great-grandfather stopped carving his own spindle. I will name them plain. That is the whole story right there. Before we go on, there's something coming for this country, and the news won't say a word about it till it's already on your doorstep. It comes down to one number, 3 days. That's what the stores hold for you. My grandfather Eli's pantry held a winter, and the difference was never money, it was knowing. I'm Silas Mercer, 7th generation on this ridge, and before Eli died, he made me swear that knowing wouldn't die with me. So I set it down. 904 pages of it in one book, silasmercer.shop. Links below. All right, back to it. The first piece is not a piece of the kit. It is the piece of you that has to change before the kit ever works. I am talking about believing wood on wood will make fire. My grandfather Eli set me down at 7 years old on the porch, put a spindle in my hand and said, "Boy, this stick will burn if you make it want to." I did not believe him. Took me until I was 12 to believe him. And that is why we start here. You are not lighting the wood, friend. You are grinding it, turning it into black dust. And when the dust piles up in the notch and gets hot enough, it lights itself. That is it. That is the whole trick. Every part of this skill from here on out is just how to make dust, how to keep dust, and how to get dust hot. The bow drill works because of one thing. Friction converts mechanical energy into heat, and heat pyrolyzes wood into charcoal dust. And charcoal dust, packed into a pile just tight enough, reaches roughly 800 degrees Fahrenheit and holds an ember. You are not the source of the heat. The spindle is. Concentrated friction on a point the size of a dime, spinning 8 to 10 times a second, generates heat far faster than it can dissipate. Not a conspiracy, neighbor, just physics. And I want you to understand something. This skill did not just get less popular. It got replaced on a specific date by a specific man for a specific reason. April the 7th, 1827. That is the day John Walker, a chemist in England, wrote the first sale of a friction match into his ledger book. 9 years later, 1836, an American named Alonzo Dwight Phillips patented the phosphorus match in Springfield, Massachusetts. By the 1850s, the match had walked into nearly every cabin in America and taken the fire set out with it. 200,000 years of humans making fire from wood, erased from ordinary knowledge in about 20. That is not an accident. That is a business plan. And the National Park Service, the same Park Service that runs Yellowstone and Glacier and every big woods you have ever heard of, put out an official video of their rangers making a bow drill fire the exact way I am about to teach you. It works. They filmed it. It is not folklore. It is Tuesday afternoon on federal land. Eli wrote about the bow drill in his notebook in the winter of '73. Said the man who taught him was a Cherokee mail carrier out of Cherokee County who had learned it from his father. That notebook is on my table right now. You said 800 degrees. My hand is not hot enough to make wood 800 degrees. That is the objection. The answer is you are not the source. The spindle is. Because if wood on wood is that simple, the next question is the one that pays out the villain. Who made money the day you stopped believing it? The second piece is understanding what you gave up when you accepted the match. And it was not a skill. It was a category of self-reliance. Before 1827, fire was a skill or a treasure. You made it or you carried it. A hot coal in a punky wood carrier or a live fire kept banked overnight. After 1827, fire became a purchase. Every household needed matches every week. And unlike a spindle you carve once and use for 2 years, a match is used exactly once and discarded. That is the mechanism. That is the whole engine of the match economy. Within one generation, no ordinary American house needed to teach fire starting to children anymore. The skill moved from every kitchen to 0 kitchens in about 40 years. By 1910, the United States Congress had to pass a law forbidding the shipment of white phosphorus matches across state lines because factory workers were losing their jaws to Fosse jaw. That is how big the match business had become. Big enough that Congress had to bend a whole industry. Today, walk into any outfitter and you will find a ferrocerium rod kit, striker, rod, and a little bag of shredded tinder for $40, which is a fine tool, nothing against it. But that is $40 for a technology your great-great-grandfather could have replicated with a stick and a bootlace. Now let me be plain about this, friend. Nobody at Diamond Match sat in a boardroom in 1881 and said, "How do we crush the bow drill?" Nobody had to. That is not how it works. It is not a conspiracy, neighbor. It is just markets. The knowledge died because there was no money in you knowing it. and a great deal of money in you buying a box of matches every week for the rest of your life. And if you have bought a lighter this year, I have too. That is not on you. They are good at what they do. So here's your action for this piece. Before we cut a single stick, go outside this afternoon and find one dead standing branch of cottonwood, willow, or basswood. Break it. If it snaps clean and dry, you have your hearth board. That is step one. Cost you nothing. Now, 5 pieces. That branch you just broke is one of them. The other 4 are so specific that the wrong wood in the wrong slot will keep you from making fire for the rest of your life. Pattern break, neighbor. Everything so far, the physics, the villain, the 200-year replacement, is warm-up. What comes next is the doing. And the piece they buried hardest, the 7th piece, is still ahead. 9 out of 10 quitters quit in the next 3 minutes. 3rd piece. 5 pieces of the kit: hearthboard, spindle, bow, handhold, tinder bundle. Say them out loud. If you cannot name them without thinking, you do not have the skill yet. My grandfather made me say them every night for a month before he let me touch a knife. Hearthboard, 8 to 10 inches long, 2 to 3 inches wide, ½ an inch thick. Cottonwood, basswood, willow, or dead dry cedar. Soft enough to give up dust. Not so soft it turns to mush. Spindle, 6 to 9 inches long, ½ to 3/4 inch across, rounded on the bottom like the tip of a crayon, pointed on the top like a dull pencil. Same species as the hearth, or one small step harder. Straight grain, no knots. Bow, wrist to elbow, 18 to 24 inches. A green branch is fine. You want a little spring, not a rigid stick. Any tough wood, hickory, ash, oak, whatever grows near you. Handhold. This is the piece most beginners get wrong. It goes in your palm, and it has to be harder than everything else in the kit. A knot of hardwood, a rock with a divot, a piece of bone, anything that will not burn out on you. Tinder bundle. A bird's nest of the finest dry fiber you can find. Inner bark of cedar or cottonwood, shredded to hair. Milkweed down, cattail fluff, dry grass tops. Loose in the middle, tighter on the outside. 5 pieces. 2 years of fire. From a walk in your own woods. The University of Colorado Museum of Natural History publishes those exact dimensions on their own handout. This is not something I am making up on a mountain porch. This is public museum grade knowledge. They will sell you a $40 ferro rod kit and tell you the primitive stuff is impractical. Fine. Believe that if you want. Or you can carve 5 pieces of wood in an afternoon and never buy another fire starter for the rest of your life. And if that kit is already in your pack, friend, that is not on you. They are good at selling. The failure mode is green wood, pale dust, no ember. The fix is to only cut from dead standing branches, never groundfall, which soaks moisture from soil. This weekend, cut all 5 pieces. Rough shape them with your knife. Set them by your stove or your heater to dry for 3 days. That is your homework. Now, the pieces are on the table. And here is where every book I have ever read on this skill lies to you. Because they show you the pieces and skip the part your body has to do to make them work. 4th piece. Your body is the 6th piece of the kit, and nobody tells you that. You are the frame that holds everything else steady. Get the frame wrong, and the finest carved set in the world will not spark. Get the frame right, and even a rough set will make you fire in 3 minutes. Kneel down. If you are right-handed, right knee on the ground. Left foot flat, planted firm on the far end of the hearth board so it cannot move. The hearth is pinned under your boot. That is foundation 1. Bow is in your right hand. Handhold is in your left. Spindle goes vertical between them, bottom in the hearth, top in the handhold. Now here is what nobody teaches you. Left wrist braces hard against your left shin. Your shin becomes a post. Your wrist locks against that post. And that means the handhold cannot wobble. It cannot drift. The spindle stays plumb. Foot, wrist, shin. 3 points of contact. It is a triangle, neighbor. A triangle with a stick spinning in the middle of it. That triangle is the machine. Foot, shin, wrist, lock. Do not move. The Colorado Museum handout, same one from before, says it plain. Brace your left arm against your knee and secure the pointed end of the spindle with the handhold, applying pressure downwards. They are describing the triangle. They just do not call it that. The failure mode is beginners lean forward instead of pressing down. The spindle drifts, the bowstring slips, and no dust forms. The fix is to keep the shoulder over the handhold, not out ahead of it. The pressure is straight down, from the top of your spine through your arm into the spindle. First time I did this alone, I was 14. Eli was in the house. I bowed for 45 minutes and got nothing but a polished hole. Went inside cussing. Old man came out, looked once, moved my wrist half an inch onto my shin, and said, try that. Coal in 90 seconds. That is the difference between doing it and doing it right. Kneel down right now wherever you are. Foot forward, wrist against shin. Feel the triangle. Do it 3 times a day this week until it is muscle memory. You have the pieces. You have the frame. Now the string. And there is one specific wrap that people miss. And if you miss it, the whole thing skates and sings and does nothing for an hour. 5th piece, the string on the bow and how it meets the spindle. This is where beginners lose their afternoon. The cord runs from tip to tip of the bow. Rawhide, paracord, a bootlace, a strip of tarp cord. I have used all of them. Tension is firm but not stretched to breaking. A 1/4 inch of give when you press the middle of the string with your finger. That is the target. Now hold the bow in your right hand. Take the spindle in your left. Lay the spindle across the cord on the outside of the bow, the side away from your body. Then twist the spindle once, only once, into the cord. The cord loops around the spindle exactly 1 time. Set the bottom of the spindle in the hearth's starter depression. Place the handhold on the pointed top. Lean down, first stroke. Slow, long. All the way from wrist near the far tip to elbow at the near tip. The whole bow travels. You are not fast yet. You are teaching the string, the spindle, and the hearth to know each other. Slow, long, whole bow, whole stroke, every time. That single twist is not a detail. It is the thing that makes the whole tool a tool. The cord grips the spindle. Without the wrap, you are just rubbing a stick with a string. With it, you have a rotary drill. That is the difference between the bow drill and every other friction technique. Multiple wilderness schools teach the same single twist wrap. It is standard because it works. The first failure mode is a string too loose, spindle pops out. Fix is a shorter string or a tighter knot at the bow tip. The second failure mode is a string too tight, spindle binds and will not rotate. Fix is to loosen a hair. You want to feel the spindle spin freely in the loop when you move the bow. The third failure mode is string burning through in one spot. Fix is to shorten your stroke slightly so the cord is not running the same section against the spindle over and over. Wrap it. Try it once with no pressure. Just feel the spindle turn. Then add pressure one stroke at a time until you see the first thread of smoke. Because that first thread of smoke is a liar, friend. Half the time it means nothing. The dust it comes from is the tail. And reading dust is the part they left out of every camp book ever written. Pattern break. You are 5 pieces in. The physics, the villain, the kit, the posture, the wrap. If you stopped right now, you would already know more than most guides teach in 3 weekends. But the last 2 pieces, the reading of the dust, and then the thing they buried hardest, are where fire actually happens. Nobody outlawed this, neighbor. They just made you not need it. 6th piece, the dust is talking to you. You have to know what it is saying. When you are bowing, dust starts to fall out of the notch into the little pile on your bark catch below. That dust has a color, and the color tells you exactly what you have. Pale tan dust, powdery, dry looking, you are not there yet. Your friction is not hot enough. Bow faster or press a hair harder. Medium brown dust, slightly coarser. You are almost there. Keep going. Do not change anything. Dark brown to black dust, fine like brownie crumbs and starting to clump. That is ember dust. You are inside the last 30 seconds. That is the color of fire waiting to happen. And smoke. Smoke will come off the top of the pile before the ember forms. 10 to 15 seconds after you see steady smoke coming from the pile itself, not from the friction hole, you have a coal. Stop bowing. Set the bow down carefully. Do not exhale onto the pile. Do not sneeze. Let it sit for 10 to 15 seconds. It will grow. Pale, nothing. Brown, soon. Black, now. Smoke, stop. The Colorado Museum handout says it plainly. The dust created by the friction should be dark brown or black. National Park Service video shows the same thing on camera. This is not folklore. This is the diagnostic. Eli wrote in his notebook that the old Cherokee mail carrier called it reading the dust. Same words, different mountain. The failure mode is beginners see the first smoke and get excited, bow harder, and blow the dust pile apart. Fix is, when you see smoke coming from the pile itself, count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, to 15 with even, moderate strokes. Do not accelerate. Then stop. The second failure mode is cold ambient. In deep winter, the pile cools faster than it can build. Fix is, work in shelter. Use a leaf or bark catch. Block the wind with your body. And listen, I am not going to lie to you. Doing this the first 10 times will beat you. Your arms will burn. Your wrist will cramp. You will get one polished hole and no fire. That is normal. That is every person who has ever learned this skill. You are not failing. You are learning. Practice the reed on wet paper first. Rub 2 sticks in your kitchen sink and watch what dust looks like when it cannot ignite. Then take the dry set outside. You will know the difference. Now you have the pieces, the frame, the wrap, and the reed, which brings us to the tinder, the breath, and the 3 companion items that turn a coal into a night alive. And once we're done with all 7 pieces, I owe you a truth. Because there is a hinge in this skill. One that if you get wrong makes every other piece useless. I have been holding it. It is next. 7th piece. From a coal the size of a pea to a flame you can cook on. And the 3 things you carry with the fire. Because a fire alone in the snow will not keep you alive till morning. You have your bird's nest ready before you start bowing. Coarse fiber on the outside, hair fine on the inside. Cedar inner bark shredded until it looks like a woman's hair. A bowl shape in the middle, that is the receiver. Coal drops from the bark catch into the bowl. Fold the outside fibers up around it, gently, do not crush it. Hold the whole bundle in cupped hands, chest high, in front of you, but below your chin so smoke goes past your face, not into it. Now the breath. Slow. Long. From the belly, not the throat. 2-second exhale, 3-second pause. Do it wrong and you blow the coal apart or you starve it. Do it right and you will watch the fibers glow deeper red, then orange, then a single tongue of flame licks up through the top of the bundle. The instant you have flame, that whole bundle goes into the fire lay you built before you started bowing. Not after, before. That is not negotiable. And here is what the trapper on the Yellowstone carried alongside the drill. 3 things. Because a fire is not survival. A fire plus the right kit is. 1, the flintlock, not just to shoot. The pan of a flintlock throws sparks whether or not it is loaded. Trappers use their lock as a striker on tinder in a pinch. Redundancy. 2, the buffalo robe. Rufus Sage wrote it. A single buffalo robe folded double and spread upon the ground with a rock or knoll for a pillow, and enveloped in an additional blanket or robe, contentedly enjoys his rest. Hide traps body heat the way no synthetic ever will. 3, the bough bed. Hemlock or fir branches, shingle tip down, 4 inches thick minimum. Off the ground, off the wet. Frontier saying, a hard day's work makes a soft bed. Fire, robe, bed, rifle, and lock. That is the 4-corner kit. That is what he carried. And every one of them starts with a coal you made in the notch of that hearth board. Sage's account is in his Frontier Journal. The buffalo robe as bedding is documented in Salish and Kootenai ethnography. The hide used for kettles, boats, saddles, halters, shields, clothes, and bed coverings. The bough bed is in home life in colonial days. I am not your park ranger, and I am not your doctor. Winter camping without shelter kills. Practice the fire in your own back 40 in fair weather before you ever bet your life on it. Learn the skill soft, then take it into the hard country. You have 7 pieces now, and I still owe you the 8th thing, the hinge. The piece Diamond Match Company never had to worry about you learning because nobody was ever going to hand it down. That trapper on the Yellowstone back in 1833, the one with a wet match tin against his skin and the spindle and old leather, he knew what I am about to tell you. He had to. Because the Ranger video shows you the pieces, and the museum handout gives you the dimensions, and every camp book from 1920 forward tells you to cut a notch in the hearthboard. They all tell you to cut a notch. Not one of them tells you when to cut it or what shape it has to be. And that is the hinge the whole skill turns on. Miss it, and every other piece I have taught you means nothing. Here it is, neighbor, the 8th piece, the hinge. You do not cut the notch first. You burn it in first. Before you ever pick up a knife to shape that pie slice, you set the spindle in a fresh starter depression, and you bow slowly, no notch at all, just a plain hole, until the depression turns dark and glossy and about the size of a dime. Burned in, seated. The spindle has found its true home. Then, and only then, you take your knife, and you cut the notch from the outside edge of the hearthboard straight into that burned depression. Pie slice shape, 1/8 of the circle. Not wider, not narrower. Why? Because a notch cut cold into raw wood chatters the spindle. Dust scatters. The spindle drifts. You get nothing. A notch cut into a burned-in hole is a channel from a chamber. The chamber holds the spindle plumb. The channel guides the dust down into the pile. That pile is your ember. Burn first, cut second, bow third. That is the piece Diamond Match Company never had to spend $1 on, because nobody was ever going to hand it down to you. Now somebody has. This was never really about a stick and a bow, friend. It was about being the kind of man who walks into the woods with 2 hands and comes out with fire. Who does not stand in the snow with a wet lighter and wait to freeze. Who owns his warmth outright. Your great-great-grandfather could do this. Your grandfather might have. You could not, till today. That is the theft, and you just took it back. You do not have to master this in a weekend, neighbor. Do not try. Do one thing this Saturday. Walk into the woods behind your house. Find one dead standing branch of cottonwood, basswood, or willow. Break it clean and carry it home. Set it by your heater to dry. That is the whole first step. One dry stick on your floor tonight. Your granddad knew this too. Somebody just did not get the chance to pass it down to you. That is what I was here for. Tell me down below, did anybody in your family carry the old fire skills? Grandmother who kept the wood stove banked overnight? Uncle who could start a fire in a rainstorm? Tell me the story. The skill that gets the most comments is the one I go deep on next. A skill that carried a continent for 10,000 years, almost gone. Now you are one of the keepers. Next time, the $2 pantry skill that put a whole industry out of business, and the year they made sure you would forget it was ever there. Keep the old ways. They kept